Hey, thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to do a stream of consciousness and hopefully maybe get a little discussion going. And I tell you what, I was just talking with my wife about this over lunch, and I'm writing a book right now on Bitcoin, and it's about my story of how I discovered Bitcoin in 2011, how I was mining Bitcoin and I lost Bitcoin in Mt. Gox, and then Bitcoin eventually, I held on to it long enough and eventually changed my life. And now my mission is more so to just keep spreading that message, bring more people into the top of the rabbit hole so that they can get sucked down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. And I'm not a Bitcoin extremist, but I do think Bitcoin is the winner. And I do see that there's potentially some value in other cryptocurrencies, because if you're able to believe that Bitcoin can have value, then you can also logically believe that other coins can have value. Now, I'm not saying that they're better than Bitcoin or that they're something you should pay attention to or that you should even hold them long term, but they could have value in even just preserving privacy by switching between them or different reasons. But I've been thinking, because of this book, I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of thought exercises, figuring out the motivations of people. And this is just where I came to, and hopefully, somebody can help me think through this. Because when I came into Bitcoin in 2011, I did not have any previous knowledge about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. What I came into the space with was fear of missing out. I had FOMO. I saw that you could turn on your computer and mine Bitcoins, this magic internet money, with your computer, and that it's like digital gold. And I thought, I'm paying crazy fees with PayPal, and I've paid for Facebook game currency that's got no utility outside of Facebook. I actually had a Facebook game. I came from a very poor upbringing. I didn't have like money, to say, but I took everything that I had pretty much and I put it in Bitcoin and I started mining Bitcoin. It was just FOMO. The price had just, when I first heard about it, the price was $5. By the time I got my mining machines in, the price was $10. So when I started mining Bitcoin in the summer of 2011, the price was just going crazy and there was lots of FOMO. And that really hooked me in. And I saw it as digital gold. And having read books by Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Richest Man in Babylon, and those mindset books, I understood the value of gold, but I wasn't like fully down the rabbit hole of Austrian economics and all that. So I came in with the understanding that fiat money was kind of like a scam. It was getting printed from nothing. They were using your taxes to bomb people overseas, and you're getting taxed too much for things that you don't want to do. They're printing the money like crazy. Gold is somewhere that you should be, but oh wait, look, there's this new invention. It's Bitcoin. It's like gold, but it's on the internet. And so that I could plug my computer in and start mining the Bitcoins was like a huge deal to me. And I got sucked into the rabbit hole through FOMO. And I think, and I'm writing this book now, and I'm really struggling. I'm starting to struggle, and I'm starting to think, like, if this was 2011 me, right? I'm 37 now, I think. I start to lose track after a while. 28-year-old me, right? If I was coming into the space right now, had no previous knowledge about hard money, sound money, Austrian economics, Bitcoin, like the history of Bitcoin, the history of Satoshi Nakamoto and the fair launch of Bitcoin, if I didn't have any of that and all I had was the exact same mindset where I knew that gold was a better option than fiat money because they're printing fiat money like crazy, and I'm hearing about this alternative magic internet money, this cryptocurrency. So I'm of the same mindset, right? I come into the space. What do I see? I see Coinbase. I see Binance. I see DeFi. I see Bitcoin. I see Ethereum. And the FOMO is a strong drug. That's what hooks people in. And for an average person who's not, for an average person who's got maybe $500 or $1,000, whatever, maybe 10,000. You've been working for a while. You have $10,000, $20,000 saved up, say. Maybe you've got a house. Maybe you got a mortgage on a house. The average person is just not in a really good financial position. So the idea of being able to plug in your computer and mine this stuff is actually really attractive. It's a real strong thing that pulled a lot of us into the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. And you can't do that with Bitcoin anymore. So that is one of the things that we don't have for the average person. We don't have that ability for someone to just plug on their computer and be able to mine Bitcoin. So I'm really struggling with it. I was thinking like, oh yeah, of course I would just take Bitcoin. Of course I would see Bitcoin, see the value of Bitcoin. But then, so this weekend I started to try to challenge my cognitive dissonance a little bit. And I've been, the last couple of months, I've been like harping on DeFi, and like I did a podcast with Udi Wertheimer. I did a podcast with my friend Amir Rosic, and we kind of went through all the reasons why DeFi isn't DeFi. You know, it's not decentralized. It's and it's mostly just VCs, that the same VCs that backed Andreessen Horowitz and you know, like those guys that backed Coinbase, they're the ones that are really behind DeFi, and they're incentivized to look for another 100x moon bag on mostly selling these DeFi tokens to retail. And so they'll simulate usage, and then they'll pump out a token and pump that on Binance, pump that on a Coinbase, and then, you know, that's not the same moral fair, like the incentives are just totally different with the DeFi and Ethereum. But if you're surface level looking at it, if you're not doing fundamental analysis, and if you're just a young person who's just incentivized to make money, then you're going to look at this and you're going to see DeFi is like Bitcoin, but with more stuff. And it's, people are coming at me, smart people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They're saying things to me like, Bitcoin is bad for the environment, and Ethereum 2.0 is going to be like better for the environment. And they're saying things like Bitcoin is stuck in the past, it's not updating, and Ethereum is innovating. And you know, I just hear this stuff coming at me. So I'm getting the like, you know, smart people who aren't motivated. They're not bad people. They're not like charlatans or hucksters or anything like that. They're just, they don't know that, that they don't know the history of Bitcoin. They don't know the history of Ethereum or altcoins and ICOs and all that garbage. So they just look at this from the top down as, oh, well, there's Bitcoin and there's Ethereum. And this is like Real Vision is another one. Like I really respect Raoul Pal, and he's a really smart, like fundamental analyst and a macro guy. And he's been talking about Bitcoin quite a bit, and it started to come up in the same conversation as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and DeFi. And that's the trend that I'm seeing, that institutional investors, high net worth individuals, when they talk about crypto, they talk about crypto. They don't talk about Bitcoin, just Bitcoin. They talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that triggers me. Like that really makes me feel frustrated, because they don't know the history. They don't know the fundamental value of Bitcoin, and what that Bitcoin is a commodity that is the most decentralized, censorship resistant, scarce asset. You know, they don't know that like there was a 70% pre-mine in ICO for Ethereum, and that it's meant to be smart contract fuel, but it is a better version of Bitcoin. But meanwhile, as it increases in usage, the fees are going up higher than Bitcoin, making it useless as a smart contract platform and the world computer. They just see FOMO, they just see price going up, and they just see, oh, DeFi is like what Bitcoin was trying to do, but now they solved it. So it's extremely frustrating and triggering for Bitcoiners to see this happening. But then I can't ignore it. I can't ignore that I was a FOMO sapien. When I came into Bitcoin in 2011, I was excited by the idea of decentralized money, digital gold, and also number go up, right? Like that's the meme now, number go up. But it was exciting. And Bitcoin has spurts of that. Like, for sure, we have that. We have Bitcoin as the best performing asset of all the major asset classes over the last 9 years. Like, we've got that on our side for the FOMO stuff. But for wealthier people, yes, that can afford to buy a Bitcoin or can afford to buy 2.5 or 10 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoin. We have that. But for the regular person, for the 99%, the 99 percenter, the person who's got a lot of debt, doesn't make a ton of money, is middle class, maybe lower class, can't afford to be buying. In 2011, there was an option for us. We could just mine Bitcoin. We could earn Bitcoin. But now it seems like if I was to come into the space now without knowing all this stuff, I don't know if I would pick Bitcoin right away. I think I would actually go into DeFi or something like that. I think I would get sucked into the smoke and mirrors and the casino lights of altcoins. And I mean, I was just screwing around with DeFi this week using Uniswap, 1inch exchange, looking at these different shit coins. And there's like 2 or 3 of them this weekend that went up like 2 or 3x. So I'm writing this book on Bitcoin, telling people to ignore all the shit coins and to just focus on Bitcoin. And I still believe that to my core. But I have to be true to myself, and I have to like recognize that if you got no money, then one of the better ways for you to come in right now and like get a stack of Bitcoin and stack sats is through shitcoins. So while Bitcoin is in this sideways trend, I mean, sure, it's not like you don't want to become a bag holder. You don't want to become a community member, and you don't want to take too much risk on them. But if you're like 20 years old or 25 years old or whatever, and you don't know much about the space, you don't know the history behind Bitcoin, you don't know the history behind altcoins and how 96 or 7% of the altcoins are mostly going to go to zero or just die compared to Bitcoin. You don't know that. All you're coming in, you're seeing cryptocurrency. It's so exciting. Everybody's talking about crypto and DeFi and Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just part of crypto to them. And, Bitcoin's the bigger one, the original one, they don't know, they don't have all of our knowledge. So if I'm me in 2011 and I come in now, I would probably get sucked into this because I can't mine Bitcoin right now with my computer. So, I'm trying to think and put myself in my own mindset of 9 years ago and think, would I be a Bitcoin maximalist if I came into the space right now? And fundamentally, I think I would make my way there. I think I would eventually discover it. But if you don't have a big stack of Bitcoin, and if you're not stacked up, right, and if you're just coming in, I really do think you get distracted by the gains that are being had in altcoins. So, and honestly, fundamentally, I do think that that's a good way to stack sats right now. When the trend is going like this, like over the weekend, you could have doubled your Bitcoin if you were a pleb. If you had like $1,000 or something like that, you could have followed the communities and looked at the Twitter hashtags and seen the sentiment shift on these low cap shit coins, tossed your $1,000 in Bitcoin into one of these things and doubled it. Like, I know that's terrible at building terrible habits. And over the long term, you're probably going to lose everything because you'll become a gambler and then you'll be taking FOMO bets on high risk strategies. But forget about that. That's what you know now, right? If you were just a regular person, part of that 99% that's just coming into this not having all the knowledge and context, you'd probably go to altcoins. You'd probably probably get sucked into that because that's where the charts are moving right now. And there's like huge influencers talking about that. So I don't know. I'm just trying to be honest with myself, and I'm trying to, I'm writing this book and I've got this chapter on altcoins that I'm working on, and I'm really recommending people don't do altcoins. It's a distraction. It's likely going to fail unless you want to become a professional trader and look at the charts all the time and like get sucked down the rabbit hole of like trying to stack Bitcoin through shitcoins. Then you should probably just ignore it. Like if you wouldn't go on Robinhood and start trading bankrupt company stocks like Hertz, or you wouldn't dump all your money into Tesla and try to ride that wave up, or you wouldn't trade Forex currencies. Like, why would you want to do that with altcoins? So that is my advice, and I fundamentally believe that it's super high risk and you shouldn't do it. But at the same time, if you don't have any money and if you're willing to take super high risk, then what's the harm in trying to do that? What's the harm in trying to double your stack through high risk plays when you're young? And a lot of Bitcoin guys, including myself, will say, like, just ignore it, it's all scams. And ignore it, it's just going to blow up. But it's actually a tool, just like trading on BitMEX. You know, it's risky, but it is a tool. And to be like just dismissing it as a scam, I don't think it's intellectually honest, and I don't know how to go forward. So I'm looking for some consultation here because we're in like a sort of like an alt season right now, and likely we're going to see a bunch of these medium cap cryptocurrencies end up becoming injected into the conversation with Bitcoin, and we're going to start seeing like influencers start peddling ICO, and we're going to start seeing like James Altucher and Ty Lopez types come back in with their cryptocurrency courses. We're going to start seeing a lot of crypto influencers pumping their bags. There's some people that I really respected that were like traders, but they like held most of their bag in Bitcoin, like the 70% or 50% at least of their you know, net worth investment of cryptocurrency was in Bitcoin, and they believed it was the best. But now, because of all the FOMO, I'm seeing these people that I respected because, you know, they were honest about it. They weren't just saying like, you know, Ripple's the next thing and you should get into Ripple because Ripple's going to be like the bigger than Bitcoin, or like ETH is going to flip in Bitcoin and it's the world computer, and like going down the community bag holder narratives. They were actually just being like, listen, Bitcoin is the one, but you can use these shit coins and these altcoins to leverage and get more Bitcoin. And in the end, you're probably going to want to pull some of that out to dollars as well. Even when Bitcoin goes up 10x, you're going to want to take some of that out to dollars. So it's all about being a value maximalist, necessarily not being a Bitcoin maximalist. But Bitcoin is totally different. Bitcoin is the commodity. Bitcoin is the asset class. Crypto is a separate thing. Crypto is like Forex currencies and penny stocks and junk bonds and stuff like that. It's not bad. It's not like, you know, if you're a junk bond trader or a penny stock trader, Forex trader, whatever, it's not like you're immoral. You should just, the thing that frustrates Bitcoiners is that they try to lump all this garbage in with Bitcoin. So I don't know how to think about this. I'm just talking out loud because I was having this conversation with my wife, and she was telling me, well, you know, she's not really into Bitcoin herself, but she was like, well, don't you say to people, like, don't mess with the altcoins because it's bad at, you know, it's going to get you wrecked or whatever. I forget how she phrased it. I was like, yes, but then putting myself in my own shoes years ago, if I came into the space now, I'd probably get sucked into the Binance casino or the Coinbase casino or the DeFi, like Uniswap casino, because it's accessible for regular people that don't have a lot of money. And what do we have on the Bitcoin side? I mean, we've got truth, we've got honesty, we've got integrity, we've got values, we've got no pump and dumps, we've got like people actually building things, not incentivized for dumping tokens on each other. DeFi seems all about like the VCs doing generalized mining and yield farming, which is actually just manipulation and pumping fake volume. There's no difference between yield farming and generalized mining in DeFi than wash trading on Binance, in my mind. Absolutely no difference. They're taking their like Andreessen Horowitz just raised $500 million, and I bet you what they're going to take at least 50 million of that and use it for yield farming and like generalized mining. So they call it generalized mining. That just is another fancy term for simulating usage. So they're simulating that there's usage. When you actually look at the DeFi, there's maybe like 5,000 users, weekly active users, and on the dApps and stuff. And when you look at the Compound and all these different like lending protocols and stuff, the average user is $100,000 whale. And now $100,000 per user is not a whale in terms of like, but this is high risk. So I imagine that person only has 1% at play here. So you can imagine this person has like $5-10 million they're playing with, and they're just like using 100 grand of it to play around on DeFi to yield farm and do all that stuff. So they make it sound like this is changing the world. They make it sound like, oh, well, because Tether rides on top of Ethereum mostly now, DeFi is going up in value because poor people in Latin America are using it. And it's just big smoke and mirrors. Oh, thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Bruce. Bruce said hi. So anyways, Bruce, we're supposed to do a podcast. If you're still listening, maybe we'll talk about this, because I do have a bunch of cognitive dissonance here. I don't know how I think about this. I mean, obviously, I just rambled on for 20 minutes about how I think about it. So I know how I think about it, but I'm trying to resist. I'm trying to resist leading people down a path that they'll get wrecked on. But I also think that a majority of the people that are coming into the space now are going to be led into the space through DeFi, through crypto, through Ethereum, through like this guy's like, you know, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The biggest hidden gem in the world right now. Why are you not talking about Haven? Let's hear your thoughts on XHV. Some scammy anonymous founder shitcoin stablecoin. Okay, but people are going to get sucked into that. They're going to fall for that. So as a Bitcoin influencer, I don't want to be one of those guys that just says this is all a scam. I recognize that you can actually make some money with some of this stuff, and it's not immoral to trade Bitcoin, and it's not immoral to trade shitcoins. What I think is bad game theory by Bitcoiners and especially Bitcoin maximalists is to not put yourself in the shoes of the person who's coming into the space not knowing what you know. You know why Bitcoin is the best. That person doesn't know. And there's 99% of the world that has not used this stuff yet. And that 99% of the world is going to most likely come in through Coinbase and Binance and the DeFi stuff and all these other FOMO narratives. At least half of them, I'd say, because when you go search buy Bitcoin, and by the way, that's what people are searching for. They're not searching how do I use how do I yield farm on DeFi. They're searching how do I buy Bitcoin. People want Bitcoin, but then they get sold shitcoins when they join, when they you know, set up their account on the exchanges. So Bitcoiners are doing an awesome job at educating people and trying to bring them down the proper rabbit hole. You got like Peter McCormick, who's doing an amazing job of reaching out to the average person and trying to educate them towards Bitcoin. You got like Marty Bent's newsletter and his podcast. Who else is doing? Oh, Stefan Livera is doing a really good job. Even like Real Vision is bringing like wealthier institutional investors, but they're kind of like mixing the conversation with Ethereum, so that's not so great. But at least they're talking about Bitcoin, so it's kind of good. Then you got like Pomp's podcast, which him and his partner Jason are kind of shitcoiners, and they're venture capitalists, so they're just trying to make money, but they also talk mostly about Bitcoin. So I'd put them in the same basket as Real Vision. It's bringing influential people to Bitcoin, but it also mixes in the crypto stuff with it too. So I'm talking about like larger impact, right? Like Dan Held is another guy who's educating people on Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that do the work. I mean, there's so many shows. They do the work of telling people why Bitcoin is the one, and they only talk about Bitcoin. I think that here's what I would love to happen. There's tons of crypto YouTubers, and there's tons of people that were in crypto or that were in Bitcoin that then just became crypto because for whatever reason they left the Bitcoin, Bitcoin only, and they went to crypto, and now they're like they're doing all kinds of promotions of shitcoins. I hate when that happens. I would be totally fine if people went to influence and talk about crypto, but they were like honest about how most of this stuff is just a tool to get more Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is what you should stack, and you should never hold this other garbage. Somebody say, Patrick Dugan saying Chaz Cryptoson's LN junkies. I'm gonna have to look at that. I never heard of that. Why do people want Bitcoin in the first place? They think it's I think you meant they think it's a get rich thing as much as the rest. I think that's what you meant. Yeah. Am I trying to save everyone? That's a good question. It's a therapy session now. It's turned into a therapy session. I am trying to save people. That is what my mission is now. I think I discovered Bitcoin changed my life, and I want to give back in a way that influences more people and accelerates the adoption of Bitcoin. I want to see Lightning Satoshis as money of the internet. I want to help fund and organize development and donations and everything for Bitcoin development, for Lightning development, for Lightning as a service, for Bitcoin as a service. I want to see merchants using Lightning. I want to see boomers like coming into Bitcoin. Boomers and silent generation own 80% of the wealth in the world. You know, there's a $60 trillion wealth transfer event going to be happening from boomers down to millennials and Gen X. Why are we waiting for that? Why wouldn't we just go out there and start educating? So I want to give back there. I want to help boomers get into Bitcoin before it's 100,000 or more per coin. So there's different ways, and yes, I want to save everyone. That's what it comes down to. Well, Cedric Facci said, how do you deal with FOMO, sir? Well, I'm a FOMO sapien, man. I am a FOMO sapien. I feel the FOMO, and I get it. I think a lot of people feel the FOMO. That's why pot stocks go in a bubble the same time as crypto. That's why Tesla's at like whatever $1,500. That's why retail traders are pumping the stock market. I mean, FOMO is real and it exists, and we shouldn't ignore that, because if we ignore the FOMO and we don't relate with regular people that feel FOMO, then we're going to ignore a whole swath of people that are going into crypto, not to Bitcoin. And all these people going into crypto, if we're just calling it all scams and saying, making fun of it and not engaging with crypto people and influencing them towards Bitcoin, I feel like we're going to lose a lot of this battleground of ideas that, like, Trace Mayer likes to say, and if he ever comes back, but when he used to say on podcasts and stuff, he'd say this is a battleground of ideas, and he's just trying to take more territory on the Bitcoin blockchain. So he would be fine with trading shit coins and grabbing more Bitcoin territory. It's a shame that he went down that Mimble coin rabbit hole, but I mean, that's FOMO too. So I just want more people to be educated about Bitcoin. And listen, if you used altcoins and you use shitcoins as a lever tool to like pull the slot machine and try to double or triple or 10x your Bitcoin, I just want people to be honest about it and give smart advice that you got to come back to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is where you want to like store your wealth long term. If you're going to put wealth into a cryptocurrency, you got to be in Bitcoin. And at least like half of your crypto net worth should be just long-term hodl Bitcoin. You should be 70% minimum. If you're like, a young person or something like that, and you're getting sucked into FOMO of DeFi tokens and all that, just know it's going to blow up, and you got to exit before the rug gets pulled out. Otherwise, it's probably going to go down 95%. So it's hard for me to deal with FOMO. I don't have a good answer for that. But all I know is that it's real, and a lot of people are going to get sucked into FOMO. And if we don't relate with them and we don't try to bring them back to Bitcoin and educate them, then I think we're doing a disservice for the adoption of Bitcoin. And I think we're doing a disservice for the people that are getting sucked into these things, because they're not learning about why Bitcoin matters. So I have great respect for all the people like Alex Gladstein that's working at the Human Rights Foundation and all the developers working on this stuff. I have great respect for them, because they're ignoring all the FOMO and they're working hard on making the technology work. What Square Crypto is doing right now, doing design grants for the UX of Bitcoin, that's amazing. I'm heartened by a lot of the stuff I see. I was very fearful of like, consensus and all these DeFi funded things competing with Bitcoin, but I'm seeing a lot of great stuff in Bitcoin too. I just think that if I was a young person and I came into the space right now, I would probably get sucked in, and that wouldn't be good for the Bitcoin space because I think I do add some value, even though I get shit on all the time on Twitter because I'm not in the same echo chamber necessarily. I do think I add some value, and I think I can add a lot more value. So I would hate to have I would hate to have missed people like me because I was not engaged with crypto. So, I mean, that's why I went on Richard Hart's podcast. That's why I went on his show, because he's got a big viewership of people that don't know much about Bitcoin. They're just into the FOMO side of things, and I was trying to educate them on Bitcoin. Like, hey, we're here. Bitcoin's good. A lot of people are pushing these narratives that like Bitcoin is broken, Bitcoin is slow, Bitcoin pushes people away, and it's just not good. I want to see more. I would love to see, and I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. I would love to see more people, Bitcoiners, engaging with the crypto people and then trying to represent Bitcoin in that space. Because as much as we don't want to be involved with that side of the FOMO crypto stuff, a lot of people are influenced by that. And thankfully, we've got shows like Peter McCormick's where they're influencing tons of people. But hey, there's billions of people left to come into this space. So that is it. If anyone has any questions for me or whatever, post them there. Otherwise, I'm going to bail. I still don't know what I'm going to finish this chapter of the book, how I'm going to finish it. But I mean, I don't want to give people bad advice. I wouldn't want to give myself bad advice. If I was coming into Bitcoin right now, where I was 9 years ago with no money and just a gaming computer, maybe, like 10,000 in the bank with a small lifestyle business or whatever that was just paying my bills and like allowing me to live a comfortable life, but not quite like upper class or middle class or whatever, like the average person, right? If I was coming into the space, would I come to like Stefan Livera's podcast right away and like learn about Austrian economics and learn about why I should stack Bitcoins and learn how to run a node and follow like Brian Trolls and like Mr. Hodl and like all those Bitcoin maximalist guys? Would I be in that? Would I be super into the Telegram rooms and the IRC chats and like learning fundamentally why Bitcoin's better, why I would want to run a node, why decentralization is the most important, why censorship resistance is the most important, and why Bitcoin has all that? Would I be learning about the technical side of things, about like how to run a Wasabi dojo or whatever? Like, I don't know if I would be in that mindset. I think I would just be like wanting to make money. I'd be thinking, how do I get some of these Bitcoins? Like, these things are going to be worth $1 million in 10 years. How do I get some of these things? And I would see shit coins and I would see altcoin influencers talking about how they just 10x their money on this link and like, 4chan memes and Dogecoin getting tweeted out by Elon Musk. And I would probably get sucked into that. So who is doing the shitcoin rehabilitation? Who is doing the shitcoin education to educate the shitcoiners and the altcoiners that Bitcoin is the thing? Well, there's Joe 007. He's a whale trader on Bitfinex who does a great job at that. There are people doing it. Cedric says, I think most people start with alts and then become Bitcoiners. And I think that's true. And unfortunately, it's mostly when the alts get wrecked and you're holding bags of like Decred or something like that. And then you're like, oh, this is Bitcoin, but it's got VCs backing it. And it's got some, insiders at Coinbase are holding it. And it's got governance on chain. And, there used to be Bitcoin developers working on it. So I'm going to buy bags of Decred because it's better than Bitcoin because it's more efficient at mining. And like, whatever the narratives are of the pick your altcoin, you buy it. you get lucky maybe, but you also hold that thing long term and get wrecked, absolutely wrecked. Like, you should have just held Bitcoin. So I would like to save people from that hurt and save people from that pain and teach them proper risk management and how to come back to Bitcoin and why you should come back to Bitcoin and why all these insert feature here coins are not competitive with Bitcoin and why that doesn't matter. So I guess I'm going to start trying to do that, but maybe that's what my chapter is going to be about in this book. Because I think you're right. I think most people will come into the space through that now, and then they'll eventually become Bitcoiners, or they'll go down the rabbit hole of DeFi for, people in Africa or something like that, and not realize that's just somebody else's dollars in somebody else's bank account. You're using Tether. You're actually trusting that there's dollars in a bank account somewhere. So you're double trusting. You're not only trusting in the faith and full credit of the United States to pay back its debts, and you're trusting that they're not going to hyperinflate the currency. So that's one layer of trust. Then you're also trusting that, now it's on digital rails, and you're hoping that the fees don't get too high on Ethereum, which they are, and you're hoping that the dollars in Bitfinex's bank account don't disappear, which they have. So I don't align with stable coins, but people are using it. People are using stable coins, so not nearly as much as they're using Bitcoin, although I've been told recently that people are using stable coins a lot more. So I have to find that data. And anyway, that's it. That's it for me. That was my rant and my therapy session. And thanks for listening. If you want to check out my podcast, it's Magic Internet Money. I might be changing the name, Magic Internet Money, and all the podcast places. I just did a podcast episode with my friend Jordan Harbinger, who has he's had one of the top podcasts for like 10 years. And my podcast is more about, I do interviews with stand-up comedian friends of mine and that don't have any Bitcoin, and high net worth successful entrepreneur friends of mine who have Bitcoin and have had Bitcoin for a long time, but just aren't in the scene. Like, they're not on Bitcoin Talk, or they're not on Reddit, they're not on Twitter. They're just not public about it, but they believe in Bitcoin and they hold Bitcoin. So the last one I had was with my friend Jordan Harbinger, and he's got a super successful podcast, and he's had Bitcoin since 2011. I mean, he's got one of the top 10 podcasts or something. I think Apple named him top podcasts in 2018, but he doesn't really talk about Bitcoin too much on his show, because he has people like Kobe Bryant on there, and Bob Saget was just on his podcast the other day. He's got some pretty big people on there. So he doesn't talk about Bitcoin much. So we sat down and we had a big conversation about this. We had a big conversation about, him being in Bitcoin early, and he's still holding Bitcoin. He likes Bitcoin. So it's pretty fun if you like that type of stuff. Yeah, here's a glowing review. Thank you. The podcast is great. The guests too. So I'm going to end it there. Thanks very much for the questions and the comments, and hit me up on Twitter at BradMillsCan with your thoughts on this subject. I do think it's something that we're short-sighted on in the Bitcoin side. I think we're short-sighted. I think there's a lot of people coming in through the crypto funnel and the DeFi funnel, and I want to make sure that we're doing a good enough job of influencing them over to the Bitcoin funnel, and not letting the altcoin creators and the bag holder leadership and the crypto influencers and all that, not letting them shit on Bitcoin and make these new people think Bitcoin's broken, because that is what's happening. They're all people are starting to think Bitcoin's broken, Bitcoin's slow, Bitcoin's expensive, it's Friendster, it's bad for the environment, all these dumb narratives I'm hearing, because all these big coin leaders, or whatever you want to call them, they're all pushing that shit because they're trying to pump their bags and dump on their followers, and they're pushing all those bad bunk narratives, or they just got jaded and they don't believe in Bitcoin anymore. So we got to rep Bitcoin over in the shitcoin dens, in the dank dens of shitcoinery. So I like to I was playing poker with Luke and Nick and Chris and Harry Paul and those guys, And I said I'm a Bitcoiner on the streets, but a shitcoiner in the sheets. So I'll end with that one. I relate with shitcoin mentality. I relate with the FOMO. I relate with wanting to double your Bitcoin with altcoin trading. I relate with all that stuff. And I believe Bitcoin is the one. I believe Ethereum and DeFi, it's all got bad incentives, and it's corrupt and broken from the fundamental core of it. And it's all mostly going to go down in value against Bitcoin. So short term, you can use it as a tool to leverage and don't get caught up in it. That's my advice. I would say whatever, if you're, if you know the risk you're taking, just don't believe the shit they say. Vitalik wasn't chased away from Bitcoin Core. The developers didn't chase him away. It wasn't like Bitcoin's not bad for the environment. Proof of stake's not going to save the world. Anyways, I would love to engage more, and I would love to see more Bitcoiners engage more with that stuff, because it's otherwise it's allowing people to get sucked down these rabbit holes that are not going to do them any good. And maybe it will do them short-term good. Maybe they'll 10x their money, and then they'll become a community member of that coin, and they'll just give up on Bitcoin, and then it'll get wrecked, or the SEC will cease and desist it or something like that. So anyways, that's enough for me. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.